Okay, welcome back from lunch, everyone. Nice to see you guys. Everybody get some food to fill themselves up. Yeah, get some nourishment. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to move on with our class here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with meditation. I'm going to do some chanting to ease into the meditation, come in with the guidance. Then there'll be that period of time where it's just quiet and we're meditating. Then we're going to come out of that with some more chanting. And then I'm going to share with you guys this topic of transforming the three poisons of craving, anger, and ignorance, helping you guys to understand what these are and how to eliminate them from the mind. So if you'd like to join in for meditation, you're always welcome to do the chanting and then do the meditation as well. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakewa Otang Mahakewanang Apivate-ami Savakato Mahakewata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakewato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakewa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Oto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธภะคะวาพุทธังภะคะวันตังอะภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตภะคะวะตาธัมโมธัมมังนัมสสามิสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสรังโอโตภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm going to be sharing with you guys this topic of transforming the three poisons of craving, anger, and ignorance. This is where you're going to broaden your understanding of what's going on in the unenlightened mind and really deepen it. And we're going to talk about the solutions that are going to fix this as well. So these are the three high-level ways of understanding the pollutions that the Buddha discovered. In a more detailed sense, there's something called the 10 fetters, which are the most detailed description of what's going on in the unenlightened mind. But it helps to learn about them at this higher level as well. We refer to them as the three poisons or the three unwholesome roots or the three fires. These are the pollutions or the defilements. It's a high-level description of what's keeping the mind in the unenlightened state and what's causing it to keep experiencing discontentedness over and over and over again. It also explains why you experience unwholesome results in your day-to-day life or unwholesome karma, that anytime you make decisions through these unwholesome roots, it's going to lead to unwholesome karma or unwholesome results in your day-to-day life. And once you understand what these are, you'll see why that's the case. It provides a clear description of the problems in the mind, where the 10 fetters describes the most detail. This describes this high-level understanding of the problems in the mind. And there's also solutions to these, which are the three wholesome roots. And I'm going to explain those to you as well as part of today's talk. So let me just first describe these at a high level, then we'll go into each one in detail and talk about them with the solutions. So this craving, anger, and ignorance, or also referred to as greed, hatred, in delusion, this is explaining these three individual pollutions that are in the mind. The craving is what we were just talking about with the Four Noble Truths, the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection, the selfishness that the mind has, wanting to have things a certain way. It's the expectations, it's the longing, yearning, thinking the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide lasting satisfaction. And if the mind gets what it wants, it gets pleasant feelings, like like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. And if the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets the painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, and others. And then there's the neither painful nor pleasant feelings as well. So as long as there's craving in the mind, it's going to experience these conditional feelings, because when the mind gets what it wants, it gets pleasant feelings, and then there's the painful ones, and there's the neither painful nor pleasant feelings. So this is what's underlying the mind, is this craving, desire, attachment, chasing after the objects of its affection, thinking that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So it chases and chases and chases. It's kind of like the mind thinks, what do I need to feel complete? What do I need to feel whole? What do I need to feel happy? Money, that's what'll do it. Let me go get some of that. And then you go get some of that money, and then you realize, that's happy. I feel happy. But then that happiness wears off. And now you're like, I know what I need. I need a new boyfriend or girlfriend. Let me go get one of those. And now you chase that for a while. And you get one of those, and you're kind of happy for a little while, but then that fades away too. And then you're like, what do I need? A new house. Let me go get one of those. And now you chase after that for a while. And it's a new car. It's this, it's that. It's always something external. The mind thinks that it needs something in order to be satisfied. So if the mind gets what it wants, it gets those pleasant feelings. But when it's not getting it, it gets the painful feelings. And that's when the anger can arise. That's the mind having hostility or bitterness or harshness. And now when that anger is arising, the mind thinks that it's something external that's causing it. So that's where it becomes unskillful through its intentions, speech, and actions. You might push people away. We talked about that earlier, right? That's aversion, where the mind thinks that, if I push this person out of my life, or I push this situation out of my life, that'll make everything better. But it doesn't, because you haven't solved the underlying cause, which is the craving, right? And you can see that because when you push people out of your life, you still get discontent. If they were the real true problem and the cause of that problem, when you push them out of your life, you wouldn't get annoyed or frustrated any longer. Or you'll become bitter and harsh and hostile towards people with your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And this is like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear it into doing things your way. So if you get what you want, you're happy. But if people around you aren't doing things your way, right? And this is trying to fear this being into doing things your way. Or you might put pressure on someone, trying to convince them to do things your way, putting your expectations on them and trying to control them to do things your way. This is the mind trying to get its cravings fulfilled. It thinks if I can just get what I want, everything will be perfect. But you can't get what you want permanently. So as long as you're pushing people away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile, or putting your expectations on people, you can't get to permanent peace and permanent joy. You can't get to harmonious relationships, because it's only a matter of time before somebody does something different than what you expect them to do it, right? So as long as you keep doing this, you won't experience harmonious relationships in your life. And where all this is coming from is this third one, called ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality, the lack of wisdom that the mind has, that the mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. It doesn't understand that craving and anger is being caused by your own mind. It lacks wisdom. So it goes around the world with this confusion or this delusion or this misperception or misunderstanding. And as long as that's in there, then the craving and anger is going to continue to exist. So while we call it craving, anger, and ignorance, it's actually because of ignorance that craving and anger continues to exist. If it wasn't for that, then you wouldn't have craving and anger in the mind. And now why most people call this ignorance, I use the phrase unknowing of true reality, because a Buddha wouldn't have called people ignorant. That's like a derogatory way of referring to people. So I suggest you consider it to be like misunderstanding or confusion. The mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. So as long as these three poisons are in the mind and you're making decisions through them, it's going to produce unwholesome results in your life. So like when you're making decisions through craving, this is like your selfish desires, wanting things to be a certain way. And as long as you're making decisions that way, you're not going to always get what you want. And now when you're putting out these decisions of craving, anger, and ignorance, and longing and yearning, it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. Or if you're putting out decisions through anger or hostility or bitterness, you can see where you've done that before, and it's produced unwholesome results or unwholesome karma. And then whenever you're making decisions in ignorance or this unknowing of true reality, it's going to also produce unwholesome results, because the mind's making decisions opposite of the natural laws. It doesn't understand the natural laws that the Buddha taught. So there's a way to transform all of this to get to the point where you're having the wholesome roots in the mind. And the things that are going to do that for you are, in the case of craving and desire attachment, is breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity. These are the two things that are really targeting it. As you guys learned before lunch, it's the Eightfold Path that you need to really be able to fully eliminate craving anger or craving desire attachment. But in terms of what's really targeting it, is it's breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity. This is like a proactive way to generally train the mind to let go and eliminate its holding on and craving for things to be permanent. There's other things as well, but these are two things that are really targeting it. So when you're practicing that breathing mindfulness meditation, like I mentioned, you're focused on the breath and the mind moves off the breath, you're letting go. And now you're coming back to the breath. You're letting go, coming back to the breath, letting go. So if 10, 15, 20 times during your meditation, you have to let go, let go, let go. This is really good for your mind, because your mind doesn't know how to let go. So that's what you're doing, is you're like exercising the mind, getting it really good at letting go. So then in daily life, when you're noticing some unwholesome thought come up, you can let it go. Right? You don't have to hold on to that. And then the generosity is helping you with that too. Because with craving, desire, attachment in the mind will become somewhat selfish and it'll hold on to things very tightly. So you would like to live open-handedly, where you're giving and sharing with the people around you without any expectation of anything in return, such as sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources. So when you're giving and sharing with people, this is the complete opposite of craving, because craving, you're going to want to hold on to things. It's like, if I spend 3 hours doing that, I want this in return. If I spend 3 days doing that, I want this in return. But when you can give and share without wanting anything back, this is training your mind to let go and not hold on to things. But remember, you need to do this without any expectation of anything in return. Because if you do things like, say you're going to a store and you see somebody's behind you and you hold the door for them, if you're standing there with an expectation that they'll say thank you, when they walk through the door and they don't say thank you, you'll be frustrated. You'll be agitated, because your mind's craving. You're expecting that everybody who walks through the door is going to say thank you. That's the craving for permanence. And you can see when your mind's done that, you've caused your own frustration, right? Some people are going to walk through and say thank you. And maybe that's what you do when you walk through the door, but some people aren't. They're not even going to see you standing there. They're thinking about what they want out of the store, or maybe they just found out that their mom passed away, and maybe they're dealing with those thoughts or some other thing that's going on in their mind. So if you stand there expecting something in return, even a thank you, you're not practicing pure generosity yet. So if you're giving your time, your effort, your energy, or your resources, it needs to be without any expectation of anything in return, not even a thank you. So you can integrate generosity into your day-to-day life really easily, right? So like I said, if you're going to the store, someone's behind you, hey, 3 seconds, 10 seconds, hold the door, let this person go in. Or say you're at the market, you're buying yourself some mangoes. Maybe you know your friend likes bananas, you buy some bananas for your friend, right? You just kind of include this in your little trip. You don't have to go like way out of your way to practice generosity. You can just include it into what you're already doing, right? It only takes you an extra minute or two to get those bananas at the market and just include it in with what you're getting. What you're going to notice with meditation in generosity is frequency is more important than the amount. Like I mentioned to you with meditation, if it's between one meditation for 30 minutes or 2 for 15, the 2 for 15 is going to be more beneficial because you're hitting the mind and you're exercising it more times during the day. The same thing is true with generosity. It's more about the frequency than the amount. So if you were going to give, say, like $500 once a year to an orphanage, or you were going to instead give $1 a day, the $1 a day is actually more beneficial because your mind's having to let go, let go, let go. Every single day, you're having to let go of that money, right? So that's why here in Thailand, when you go around, you'll see pretty much donation boxes just about everywhere you go. And say you were going to donate 100 baht somewhere. Instead, donate like 10 baht here, 10 baht there, all throughout your day. 20 baht here, 20 baht there, 20 baht there. You're having to let go more frequently. This is actually going to help your mind. Where you notice that your mind is having craving, desire, attachment, it's helpful to practice generosity. So let's just say you were doing your laundry and one of your articles of clothing were ripped and torn, and you're noticing this. And now when you see this, you get frustrated. You're like, oh man, that's my favorite shirt. And you start getting frustrated. You know you're attached to your clothing. You're having a craving for permanence. You want this clothing to be permanent. Start giving some of your clothing away, right? Sharing it with other people. This is going to train your mind to let go. Or if you notice you're attached to money and you're holding on to money really tightly, you can train your mind to let go by donating money in different places. But you need to practice generosity from the middle way. If you are practicing it excessively, you wouldn't have what you need in order to sustain your life. But if you are never practicing generosity, you're going to be quite selfish. So you need to find the middle way here. If you have some jewelry, say for example, that whenever you misplace it, your mind's all shaken up by that, share it with other people. Whether you give it away or you just let people borrow it for a period of time, you can do that where you're practicing generosity, and this will train your mind to let go. Also with your food, people tend to hoard food, but here in Asia, we put it in the middle and everybody shares food. This is the way you train your mind to not hoard food, because that's what animals do, is they hoard food. So human beings in the unenlightened state oftentimes function very much like an animal. We're not animals, we're human beings. Our mind can evolve long and far beyond what an animal can evolve to. But our mind in the unenlightened state, because we've been animals so many times, we tend to function like an animal. We tend to hoard our food. So you can share your food with people. This will be really helpful for you. So you can find different ways to do this throughout your day where you experience the ability to give and share, where you're not holding on to things so tightly. So the breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity is going to train your mind to give and share and live open-handedly and eliminate this craving, desire, attachment. So this is what's really targeting your craving, desire, attachment, but you need the whole Eightfold Path to really extinguish it 100%. But this is what's really targeting it. So do you guys have any questions on this one? So we have some. Yeah, there's a lot to learn here. Yeah, there's a lot to learn here. That's where it takes more than just a week to get to enlightenment. Let's see. I don't see any questions online. Okay. So now, as I mentioned, when the cravings are getting fulfilled, the mind gets pleasant feelings. When you don't get your cravings fulfilled, the anger arises, right? And when anger is arising, that's where the mind becomes unskillful. It becomes bitter and harsh and hostile through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. This is where you could push people away. You can be bitter, harsh, and hostile to them, or you can put your expectations on them and pressure them. And the mind's trying to get its cravings fulfilled. It thinks if I can just get these people to do things my way, everything will be perfect, right? But there's 8 billion people in the world. You can't get them all to do things your way. So you need to train your mind to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments, and that's going to knock down your anger. But there's things that you can do to go in and specifically target your anger. That's what the loving kindness meditation does, in practicing loving kindness in your day-to-day life. There's a meditation that I'm going to teach you tomorrow morning that's going to essentially rewire your mind over a period of time where your mind can be loving and kind with all beings. But then you're going to need to practice being loving and kind in your day-to-day life. You can't meditate your way to love and kindness. Meditation is going to fill up your gas tank, but then you need to go out into the world and be loving and kind through your intention, speech, and actions. That's why you have the Eightfold Path to be able to help you do that. That's where the real transformation is occurring. So this loving kindness meditation and the loving kindness in your intention, speech, and actions is what's going to transform your life. Because oftentimes when we're angry in the unenlightened state and we have a lack of wisdom, we firmly believe it's other people and we become resentful towards them. And we think that they need to change. I don't know if you guys were like this, but I was like that growing up. But because I had a lot of resentment towards my mom, right? I had a lot of expectations for her growing up, and I just wanted mom to change so badly. Boy, I was trying to change mom as much as I could, and nothing ever changed, right? So once I learned these teachings and understood them, I started changing. I started transforming my mind. And when I started transforming my mind, I started doing things differently. Right? In the past, when I didn't understand this and I hadn't trained my mind, mom would pick up the rubber ball of anger and throw it around the room. I'd pick up the rubber ball of anger and I'd throw it around the room. She'd pick up the ball of anger and throw it around the room, and I'd pick it up and throw it around the room. And next thing you know, we've got rubber balls bouncing all over the room, right? It's like fireworks in this place, right? So we have this well-worn path of anger and hostility that we go down. But we know where that leads. It leads to broken relationships. It leads to heartache and misery, right? So what you're doing with this loving kindness meditation and practicing loving kindness in your day-to-day life is you're forging this new path. It's like getting out a machete and cutting through the bushes and the branches and the stickers and then forging this new path. And that's why it's challenging. It's going to be hard for you in some situations to be loving and kind with others. But if you go down this path enough, this becomes the well-worn path, and this overgrows, and your mind doesn't go down to anger and hostility anymore because you know where that leads. But you need to train your mind enough to go down this new path. So now, after training my mind, when I would talk to my mom on the phone and she would start being bitter and harsh and hostile, in the past where I'd be bitter and harsh and hostile back, I changed. I'd say things like, Mom, I love you so much. I know in the past that I've been bitter and harsh with you, but I'm choosing not to do that anymore. I'm going to get off the phone and let you think about what it is that you just said, and we'll talk another time, Mom. I love you. She was like, whoa. She wasn't used to that because she was used to being bitter and harsh with me, and I'd be bitter and harsh right back, right? So we'd get off the phone, and maybe I'd wait 3 months or 6 months or something, and then I'd call her up, and I wouldn't even bring up what happened in the past. We'd just be talking and talking and talking. And the next thing you know, a few months later, she would do it again. And I'd be like, Mom, I love you so much. I really value our relationship, and I'm not interested in damaging our relationship. I'd really like to get to a point where we can just have love and kindness for each other. I'm going to get off the phone and let you go. I love you so much, Mom. Bye-bye. And I would get off the phone, right? And then over time, she saw like, wow, she's the one who's angry. Her son's not angry anymore, right? She's just having all this anger coming at me, and I'm just sending back love and kindness in her direction, right? It's like this log jam that we had, and I had to get rid of these anger and this hostility and this bitterness so that these logs could flow. So it's this loving kindness meditation that's going to help you to do that, to rewire the mind and be loving and kind. And you don't have to feel guilty or shameful for the things you've done in the past, because every single being has done that. Nobody is ever born perfect. We all have a lack of wisdom when we're born, and it's this path to enlightenment that's going to help you transform and change things. But you need to be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing this anger. It's not other people. And when you see that through the Four Noble Truths, then you realize, I need to make some changes here. Let me do that. And the Buddha's teachings are going to guide you in how to do that. So there's the meditation of loving kindness meditation, but then there's going out into the world and being loving and kind, right? So I was meditating, but then I had to be loving and kind with Mom, and I had to do that with my wife, and I had to do that with my son and everybody else to get to the point where all my relationships are harmonious. So this is what's going to help you to be able to do that. Okay, so any questions on the anger, hatred, or ill will, or the solutions? Yes, ma'am.
Loving kindness meditation.
Mm-hmm.
We all observe behaviors practicing loving kindness within your family group or circle of friends or just neighborhood is not as much of a challenge as it is to practice loving kindness to political systems and politicians and who are truly evil. And, I think probably keep most people up at night. And I can never get to that point in loving kindness meditation. I can't.
Sure. So part of what you're doing on this path to enlightenment is you're changing your perspective of how you look at the world and how you associate with the beings in the world. So like right now, when you said, other people are pure evil, this is the mind judging other people and looking down on them and considering them to be evil. And what you would like to do is scale that back and get to the point where you realize that other people might be doing things that are different than what you do, but we don't have to label them as being evil. Because as long as we label people as evil, there's a wall there that we're not interested to break through. So you need to get rid of that type of thoughts in your mind and just understand that they do things differently than you, and not judging them as being good or bad or anything like that, or evil. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the Buddha teaches things like, when you come in contact with other beings, he says, because we've been reborn so many times in the past, that it would be impossible to come in contact with someone today that hasn't previously been your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your son, your daughter, or some other relative. So that political person who does things differently than you and you disagree with their decisions, instead of looking at them as an evil person who's a stranger that you despise, instead change your perspective and look at this as a family member who you haven't met yet in this life, that they're a person that was potentially a family member in the past, and that even though they're doing things differently than you, that's just a different choice that they're making. And you don't have to hate them for that, that you can still have love and kindness for them, because not everyone's going to do things your way. And you need to be able to see that, some people are out there functioning with extensive amounts of craving, anger, and ignorance. But you have craving and anger and ignorance in your mind too. Maybe you have a different level of craving, anger, and ignorance, but no need to measure and compare. But everybody's at a different place in their journey in life. And there's no need for us to judge somebody for being in a different place in their journey than you are in your journey. Just understand that this person is maybe chasing money and doing things like that, and using their political power to harm certain situations. But just because they're choosing to do that, we don't need to be angry and upset with them, because it's not going to help us. Oftentimes what we do is we hold on to this anger and resentment in our mind, thinking that somehow we're getting back at this other person. But it's not. It's just like holding on to a hot coal and trying to burn somebody else. So while other people are going to be doing things differently than us and than you, that doesn't make them bad or evil. It just means that they're doing something different. And it would be wise for us to not judge them. So that's the second thing. Then the third thing is you're going to need to do loving kindness meditation in order to do it for groups of people or a specific individual. If there's a specific politician that you really despise, you're going to need to include that person in your loving kindness meditation. Or if it's just politicians in general, you're going to need to include a group of people like them in your loving kindness meditation, so you can transform your mind. And this is going to help you to then be loving and kind. And there's other things you could do as well in order to break through this wall, but these are just a couple of things to help you get started. It's on now. It just, when you press the gray button, it takes like a second for the mic to engage.
So maybe our desire to label somebody as evil, I think that most people do it to differentiate themselves from that kind of behavior. Mm-hmm. Is that personal existence view?
That is conceit. When you're judging other people and you're looking down on them, you're labeling that person as evil. That's the mind judging, measuring and comparing, trying to decide what's wholesome or unwholesome for other people. Hey, I'm better than that. That person's doing that. They're evil. I'm not evil. I'm good. Right? This is the mind's conceit.
Okay.
And then there's sensual desire in there. also, because it's rarely just one fetter that's causing any situation. There's central desire in there where the mind wants to see, hear, smell, taste, have certain touch on the body, or thoughts or ideas that go through the mind that are agreeable to you. And when you see something disagreeable, your central desire kicks in, and that's where now you become discontent, and that's now where the ill will arises, where now you might go out and gossip or slander this person or write them bad letters or something like this. So there's typically multiple fetters involved with any one particular situation. And that's why it's helpful to know what those are, those mental objects, so you can see what's going on and you can restrain the mind and not allow the mind to do that. And one of the things that the Buddha also taught that's really helpful in this kind of topic is that he says whenever you see somebody experiencing some misfortune in life, he says that you've experienced that same misfortune, either in this life or some past life. And he says whenever you see somebody experiencing something fortunate, you've also experienced that in this life or some previous life. So it's helpful that when you see somebody, like say, for example, say somebody is making decisions that are harmful to children, remind yourself that you're choosing not to do that now in this life, but in some previous life, there's a good chance that you've actually done that as well. And no need to judge that person for doing something that we've done ourselves. So for example, in the past, I used to use drugs and alcohol when I was growing up as a child in my early adulthood. So when I see someone who's addicted to drugs or alcohol, I don't experience any kind of anger or hostility, or I don't look down on them because I did the same exact thing. Even when I was growing up as a child, I used to steal. I used to shoplift from stores. So when I hear about someone stealing, I don't choose to do that today, but I did that in the past, right? And there's plenty of other things that I've done that were unwise as well. That's why this first book is so thick, because I've done all these things and I can talk about them in detail, right? So we've done all these things. So it doesn't make sense for us to judge somebody for something we've done ourselves, and just understand that they're in a different place in their journey than you. And while you choose to not do those things, their decisions are going to affect them. And now you would like to just make wise decisions to ensure that you're not making those types of unwise decisions. And then that's where they are. And at some point, they're going to need to learn that what they're doing is unwise. But rather than judging them or looking down on them, we can just maintain our contentedness and not form feelings based on wanting everybody to be a certain way. The Buddha calls this craving and worry for the world, that you see other people doing things and you're craving for the world to be a certain way. And what you would like to do is eliminate that craving and come to the middle where you understand that not everyone's going to do things the same way. Even two enlightened beings, they're going to do things differently. Because there's many different right answers in the world. Sometimes people, when I talk about enlightenment, they think everybody does things exactly the same as enlightened beings. This isn't true. You could have a particular challenge, and there could be 10 enlightened beings looking at that challenge, and there could be 10 different approaches that they have. All of them are going to do it solve that challenge in a way that doesn't cause harm to others, and none of them are going to be discontent, but the solution that they implement can be completely different from one enlightened being to another, because there's more than one right way to do things. There's plenty of unwise ways, but there's also plenty of wise ways too. So this will help you if you just kind of let go. And if you're noticing, like you're watching the news and you feel the anger coming up because you hear about that politician, redirect the mind. Take it somewhere else. Don't allow the mind to dwell in that. Let go. There's multiple aspects that are key. Having the mindfulness is so important, because if you don't have the mindfulness, you can't see what's going on in your own mind. Once you have your mindfulness, then when you see the unwholesomeness, you can redirect the mind. But see, redirecting the mind and cutting off and letting go wouldn't work if you weren't practicing breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity, because your mind hasn't been trained to let go. So all of this is working together as a complete package. You can't just call out one thing and say this is the thing, because there's actually multiple things that are working together in concert to be able to get the mind to do what it needs to do, which is let go. Amen.
Thank you. I think for me, some of this feels difficult. and I think for maybe many people who have at any stage in their life significantly felt like a victim. Personally speaking, I have felt like a victim in my very, very early childhood. And I felt powerless and afraid. And I think sometimes now as a grown old man, when anger in a situation or of a situation arises, it's a relief from feeling like that victim. I can understand logically that being angry, being abusive, or just politely telling somebody to shut up, or even removing myself from someone, is fairly futile. The teachings have taught me that much, but still, I feel there is some relief. For me to remain silent a lot and try and offer loving kindness to the people I really don't want to offer loving kindness reminds me too much of that little boy. So therefore, the anger, I think, is perhaps a relief for me from feeling like that. Could you comment on that? There's two teachings I think that I've struggled with. Over my understanding is that that I have control over my mind, that I can stop the certain thoughts. I found that completely difficult. And the other one, believing that all my suffering is due to my mind. And this ties in very much with this, you know?
Yeah. So first of all, don't believe any of this stuff. You need to be able to see the truth for yourself, that your mind is causing these discontent feelings based in craving, desire, attachment. So don't believe any of it. Of course, these teachings are challenging for individual to be able to understand, because the mind has that third one that we haven't talked about yet, which is the ignorance or the unknowing of true reality. Because the mind lacks wisdom and it's been conditioned to think a certain way, it'll firmly believe that other people are causing you to be discontent. But you need to be able to see the Four Noble Truths very clearly, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that it can't occur any other way. Nobody can insert a feeling into your mind from the external world. Everything that's happening is internal within your own mind. It's not happening externally. And you need to be able to see that. So, sure, there's going to be people in your life that are either in the past and you'll never see them again, or maybe currently in your life that you have anger and hatred towards, and you might think that it's actually better to just continue to hate them, but you can see that it just causes harm to your own mind. Like I mentioned, like when we have resentment towards someone or a grudge, we think we're getting back at the other person by holding on to the grudge, but it's like holding a hot coal in your hand and trying to burn somebody else. You're the only one being burned by that. So you need to be able to see how these discontent feelings are just burdening you with experiencing those constant emotions over and over and over again. And it just takes away from your ability to fully enjoy life and have a fully sustaining and fulfilling and satisfying life. And until you are able to see that, then you might continue to think the way that you're currently thinking. But if you can get to the point where you can see that your mind's causing these feelings, I'm surprised you can't see that yet after the different classes you've been in, but maybe we should talk one-on-one to be sure we go through some of your own examples where you get angry and you get frustrated, and I can show you how it's your own cravings that are leading to that. Because if you haven't done that work, then you'll have difficulties to see it. You have to relate it to your day-to-day experience, because I talk about examples, but those might not be examples you experience. So you need to be able to see it within your own life. So don't believe it. You need to be able to get to the truth and see it with 100% certainty. And the other thing is that, if it's the outside world that's causing these feelings, nobody would ever be able to get to enlightenment, including the Buddha. Right? Because he wouldn't be able to teach or in his case, I think there was like 100 million people in the world during his lifetime. Now it's 8 billion people. He didn't teach 100 million people to do things his way. He trained his mind, and that's how he got to the peace and the joy. Because if it was other people that were causing us to feel a certain way, we'd never be able to fix it, because we can't teach everybody to do things our way. Okay, so no more questions here. So this last one is the ignorance. This is the one that keeps all the others in place. This is the lack of wisdom, the unknowing of true reality. The mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. It's been conditioned to think a certain way, to believe a certain thing. And with belief, you don't know what's true or false. That's why I encourage people never to believe anything. In order to antidote this ignorance, you need to have wisdom. And the way you get to wisdom is through learning, examining. Then you move that into reflection in order to be able to independently verify. And then you practice. That's what's going to actually get you to the point where there's wisdom, where you'll know the truth. So like those 5 factors of well-spoken speech, for example, I know with 100% certainty that those are the truth, because in the past I didn't use the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, and I had difficulties and struggles in all parts of my life, right? Then when I started practicing these for an extended period of time, wow, all my relationships are going so well, right? I don't have any hostility or bitterness in any of my relationships. That's how you'll know it's the truth. So when I learned it, I was like, this is interesting. Then I reflected on it and I was like, wow, yeah, I don't talk that way. I haven't talked that way pretty much my entire life. You know what? Let me start practicing this and see if it actually works. And then when I practice it, it's like, wow, my wife isn't arguing with me anymore. I'm getting along with her really well. My son, all these different people. Wow, this is working so well, right? You can see it for yourself. So the way you cultivate the wisdom is you need to learn, examine, and investigate. You reflect to independently verify, and then you practice. And that's where the real transformation is occurring, in your practice. So this elimination of ignorance to cultivate wisdom, it's not just intellectual. If you intellectually understood the teachings, but you didn't practice them, you still have ignorance, right? It's kind of like intellectually we understood drugs and alcohol were unwise when we were growing up as a child, but we might have still did it. That's because intellectually we understood they were unwise, but we still had ignorance in our mind. We still were making decisions based on that ignorance, and we were putting those drugs and alcohol into the body, right? So you need to move beyond an intellectual understanding into an actual practice of the teachings, and that you're making decisions through the teachings. That's what's going to eliminate the pollutions of mind and get you to a point where you're experiencing only peace and only joy and completely harmonious relationships. So you're going to need to learn all these different teachings and others as well, right? So these are teachings that you can learn in the foundational classes, and some of them are in this particular course as well. But these are the starting point. The 3 universal truths, the 4 noble truths, the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts, the Brahma Viharas, the natural law of Karma, the 7 factors of enlightenment, extensive meditation training, the 10 fetters. These are all things that I'll teach you guys as part of the various programs that I have. So the way you get to this ignorance is through deeply knowing the truth and seeing it yourself, not through belief. So the wisdom is what's going to antidote this. So while we call it craving, anger, and ignorance, it's really because of ignorance that craving and anger continues to exist. The mind has confusion or lack of wisdom or misunderstanding. And just to summarize this, is the 3 unwholesome roots are craving, anger, and ignorance, or greed, hatred, and delusion, desire, ill will, and confusion. These are just different ways to refer to the same things. Then there's antidotes to these, which are exactly the opposite. Generosity is exactly the opposite of craving, because craving, the mind's holding on. Generosity, you're giving and sharing, living open-handedly. Anger and hatred, the opposite of that is loving kindness, where you're being loving and kind with all beings. And you'll see that it produces wholesome results for you. And then the opposite of this ignorance or confusion or misunderstanding is wisdom. That's what's going to transform your mind away from these pollutions. And now when you're functioning through generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom, it's going to produce wholesome results, or wholesome karma. It's not possible for you to experience anything other than wholesome results when you're practicing generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom. So in the past, you've been making decisions through craving, anger, and ignorance. It's like putting a lot of mud into your garden hose. And now you need to hook up the garden hose and flush this mud out by bringing in the generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom in more and more situations. But then you're going to need the tools from the Eightfold Path and the meditations to provide the mind the support that it needs to be able to practice generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom. Because it's great sitting here talking about it. It's like, yeah, let's be loving and kind. It sounds really wonderful. But then when you go out there there and you start interacting with people, that's where the challenge really sets in. So that's why you need to be consistently meditating and consistently practicing all those factors of the Eightfold Path to mature the mind and cultivate the mind where it can practice these kinds of things more easily. Okay, so any questions on this? No questions? Okay. So we've come to the end of our class. It's just a little bit after 3. So I'm going to just thank you guys for joining. Thank you for being interested to learn the teachings. And of course, you're invited to come back tomorrow if you'd like to learn some more. I'll share with you guys what I'm going to be teaching you tomorrow. I'm going to start off by teaching you loving kindness meditation. Where normally we do meditation to get started, I'm going to teach you first what loving kindness meditation is in the teachings of the Buddha about this. And then we're going to actually do loving kindness meditation together. Then after our break, I'm going to teach you identifying cravings and cultivating non-craving and analysis of the mind. This is going to teach you how to go in and almost surgically remove some of your cravings, desires, attachments. Where breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity is like a general training to kind of generally and proactively train the mind to let it go. There's actually ways you can go in and almost surgically remove them out of the mind. And this is what I'm going to teach you here. So after that, then there's the lunch, and I'll teach you cultivating healthy mental states. This is the Brahma Viharas of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. These are going to antidote specific symptoms that you have in your mind. And when you bring these wholesome qualities into your mind, it will move out the unwholesome qualities out of your mind. So I'm going to teach you these 4 healthy mental states as well. Okay, so that's our plan for tomorrow, and we're going to be starting at 9. And depending on how things go, we oftentimes will end before lunch, even though it's kind of planned to be kind of before lunch and after lunch. Oftentimes on Tuesday, we kind of end up before lunch, so we might be finished by 12 or 12:30 tomorrow. We'll kind of see how it goes tomorrow when we come into class. But I'm going to teach you these things tomorrow. Okay, so enjoy your evening, whatever you do. Have a very wonderful and lovely evening. Take care. Sawadee Cup.